Hey, you guys, Leah here. So, I'm going to sing a song for you. And it's cool if you just want to listen. But it'd be great if you feel like singing along or maybe doing the moves that I'm going to do. You might even want to add other words into it: peace, love, joy. It's important that we embody these messages, that they become part of who we are, so that when we go into the world, we're not out looking for peace, looking for love, looking for joy, that we are that and that we bring it to every situation that we enter. Peace is not off in the distance, peace is part of our existence. Peace be with me, peace before me, peace to the right of me, peace behind me, peace to the left of me, peace above me, peace below me, peace within. Peace be with you, peace before you, peace to the right of you, peace behind you, peace to the left of you, peace above you, peace below you, peace within. Peace be with us, peace before us, peace to the right of us, peace behind us, peace to the left of us, peace above us, peace below us, peace within. Peace be with us, peace before us, peace to the right of us, peace behind us, peace to the left of us, peace above us, peace below us, peace within. Peace within, peace within, peace within.
Good morning, and a heartfelt welcome to Emerson to each of you. Thank you, Bruce King, for that beautiful gathering music, and to Leah Morris for your song of peace. I'm Jeffrey Jacoby, and I serve on the worship team as well as the Emerson Choir. Welcome to our Sunday Zoom service, and we are live today from Marietta, Georgia. If this is your first time with us, then I'd like to say an extra special welcome to you and tell you how glad we are that you chose to be part of our worship today. We hope you find nourishment for your heart and mind here. Thank you for joining us. The Emerson Unitarian Universalist Congregation is a non-creedal congregation, and we welcome a wide variety of theological and spiritual beliefs. We honor the inherent worth and dignity of each and every person. So no matter who you are, where you're from, what you believe, or who you love, you are welcome here. Please feel free during the service to use the online chat to share comments, shout outs, or even just an amen. Be sure to visit emersonuu.org and scroll to the bottom where you can add your email to our list, and you'll receive our weekly newsletter so that you don't miss out on anything we have happening here. There's something new happening every week. Immediately following the service, we warmly invite you to stick around for our second hour activities. There's coffee and conversation where we chat with each other and have a chance to check in and see how some of your fellow Emersonians are doing. Then at 11:15, we have adult and youth activities. For the youth, there are 4 things to choose from. For kids, from up to senior youth. And for adults, there is a racial justice exploration. And also we have sermon reflections so that you can share any insights you may have received during the sermon or ask any questions you may have had about today's sermon topic. Speaking of which, it is a time to grieve. During this last year, we've all had so much sad news, many unexpected challenges, and have had to cancel so many things that we looked forward to. Emerson's own Reverend Deborah Bennett is with us today, and she will help us acknowledge that loss, which can be an empowering and healing act. Every week, we light a chalice to start our time of worship. Reverend Deborah will be lighting the chalice. Our chalice lighting words today are from Joseph Campbell. Those who think they know how the universe could have been had they created it, without pain, without sorrow, without time, without death, are unfit for illumination. We must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. As we begin our time of worship, please take a moment to virtually greet all of the other people that are watching right now. Have a look in the gallery view to see some of those friendly, familiar faces. And in the words of our own Millie Fuller, we are so glad you're here. Please join me now in our congregational affirmation. We need not think alike to love alike.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you. And good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to worship. Thank you for joining us. Parker Palmer has said, violence is what we do when we don't know how to be with our suffering. And there has been so much suffering in the world this year. And one of the ways we can be with our suffering is to simply name it and allow ourselves to actually feel the grief that it brings. And that is what our service is about today, creating that space for each other. And I want to begin this morning by acknowledging that yesterday and today are the start of holy days for both the Christian and Jewish traditions. Now, in the Christian tradition, as you may know, today is Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday is the first day of Holy Week, which is a 7-day span that culminates the day before Easter. The feast commemorates Jesus's triumphant arrival in the city of Jerusalem for Passover, where he was greeted by a crowd of people laying palm branches at his feet. Now, when I was a kid, we were what we called EC Christians. Well, I don't think we called ourselves that at the time, but I've come to know that that's what we were called. I'm sure you probably know what that means, right? E, Easter, C, Christmas. We showed up at church for Easter and Christmas. But once in a while, we also went to Palm Sunday. And I remember as a kid we got to take these palm branches and march them up and down the aisles of the church. I don't know why I loved that so much, but I thought that was really cool. I don't have any palm fronds today, but perhaps you can imagine us doing that, welcoming in the new spring that is to come. Now, last night also began the Jewish holy festival of Passover. And as you probably know, that commemorates the Hebrews' liberation from slavery in Egypt and the passing over of the firstborn of the Israelites. That was the last of the 10 plagues said to have been sent by God, angry at the Pharaoh for not letting the people of the Israelites go, the Jews go. Now, several rituals are included in the Seder dinner, which took place last night. It's the first night of Passover. And these rituals are partly to also acknowledge the suffering of the events that took place then. And one of the rituals is to take 10 drops or remove 10 drops of wine from the wine cups and recite the 10 plagues as a remembrance that while the Jews were redeemed through these plagues, many people did suffer. And in addition, there's bitter herbs. The bitter herbs are eaten as a reminder of the bitter pain and suffering of the Israelites that they went through as slaves to the Egyptians. And during the week of Passover, only unleavened bread is eaten. It's called matzah, as you probably know. The matzah symbolizes both the Hebrew suffering while in bondage and the haste with which they had to leave Egypt. The story goes that the Israelites were forced to leave Egypt so quickly that they didn't have time to wait for their dough to rise. So they put the dough in traveling sacks, and as they crossed the desert, the hot sun baked the dough into thin, hard matzah. Now, liberation was at their door, but there was so much to let go of, so much pain and suffering and grief to acknowledge. And Palm Sunday welcomed Jesus to Passover, and yet his death was unknowingly at hand. I think these ancient stories remind us what we have been living, that with liberation comes suffering, and with life, the unexpected pain will arrive. So too, as we eye what I'll call our exodus from the bondage of COVID isolation, we get a chance to look back at what we have left behind. So much has happened this year. I'm sure that if the Israelites, or at least some of them, if they had known what was going to happen before them, how long it was going to take to get to the promised land, many would not have gone. And I'm pretty sure that if Jesus's followers knew that his death was so imminent, that they might have barred him from coming to Jerusalem on that day. And yet those things unfolded because they must. How many of us really believed it would be a year, over a year of exile from our beloved sanctuary, from the hugs with friends and families, from singing in the choir all together live? And how many of us have faced sorrow and pain that we would not have invited, that we would have avoided if we could, but we could not? Each of our experiences this year have been unique and yet somehow so very similar. So today we are going to take a breath together. I'm going to invite you to be with us as we light candles, as we sing, as we dig in the dirt. And we will honor all that has been lost this year as we too turn our faces to the new land that is ahead of us and what we may build there. I'm going to begin this morning with some words by a woman named Ellen Bass, and this piece is called "The Thing Is." It goes like this. To love life, to love it even when you have no stomach for it, and everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper in your hands. Your throat filled with the silt of it. When grief sits with you, its tropical heat thickening the air, heavy as water, more fit for gills than lungs. When grief weighs you down like your own flesh, only more of it, an obesity of grief. You think, how can a body withstand this? Then you hold life like a face between your palms, a plain face, no charming smile, no violet eyes. And you say, yes, I will take you and I will love you again. So let us join our voices with our hymn singers this morning, Sarah Allman and Jeffrey Jacoby. Morning has broken.
For the sake friends, I'm Lauren, and today I have this story for all ages. This is a story about a pirate captain and her daughter, and longing for things just out of reach. Once there was a fearsome pirate captain who sailed a great big ship full of treasure. She had sailed the 7 seas and beyond to hear her tell it, and had many stories of adventure. She was sailing one day when she cracked the stone rudder of her ship. Now, a rudder is what directs the course of a ship. When the sails are full of wind and it's sailing across the water, and the captain is up there turning the wheel back and forth, they're turning that rudder that makes the ship go in a certain direction. The pirate captain cracked hers and had to set out for a set of islands. A large island with a bay big enough to dock her ship, and a small island where the best stonemason around lived. She made her way there and docked her ship at the large island, and rowed across in a small boat to the small island where she met the stonemason. It was going to take a very long time, he said, to make a new rudder for her very large ship, a year at least. The pirate captain decided to wait. She had been on many adventures and she was tired. So she stayed. And in the time that it took to make her new rudder, she had a baby with a stonemason, a daughter. She was so proud of the little girl and so happy to be a mother. But soon the winds of change began to blow. Her ship was fixed and adventure called to her. So the pirate captain set out. Thus began her little girl's childhood, marked by her mother's departure and her mother's returns. When the pirate captain would come back, she taught her daughter many things. She tried to teach her to swim, but never quite could. The girl was like her father, the stonemason, very good with rocks, and they both sank in water. She taught her daughter how to hide treasure around the small island, like pirates do, how to draw maps, how to chart courses, pirate songs, and all types of things. She told her stories of her adventures, and the little girl longed for the day when she would go with her mother. But her mother always said, "Not yet, not this time." The little girl grew up missing her mother, longing for her and waiting for her return, but being so happy about the time that she did have. She grew into a teenager and she grew angry about her mother being gone. It didn't make sense to her. She would ask her, "Well, why do you leave? Why do you have to go?" And her mother would say, "That's what pirate captains do." And the girl would say, well, what do pirate captains' daughters do?" And the mother would think about it. She'd say, "Well, I guess they wait." So the pirate captain's daughter got very good at waiting. She knew how to amuse herself. She knew how to sit with her longing and her anger that her mother was not there. And she knew how to make it easier. She would go to the side of the small island where she could see the big island in the bay where ships were docked. And she would sit on the warm rocks. And she would think of the time that her mother had been with her. First, she would think about all the things her mother had missed, and this would upset her terribly. Sometimes she would cry. Sometimes her grief was so great that the memories of what she had had with her mother weren't enough. But most of the time, she could sit on those warm rocks and bask in the sun, waiting to see if her mother's ship would come in, and think happy thoughts. Lean in to the pirate songs and the pirate stories. And she would think about all the places on the island where the treasures her mother had brought back were buried. And this brought her joy. Time went on, and her mother's trips grew longer and longer. What used to have been weeks and months became years. The pirate captain's daughter grew into a woman herself and had children of her own. The pirate captain came back a few times to meet her grandchildren. And this hurt the little girl that was still inside the pirate captain's daughter. Because you never really stop being a little girl or a little boy or a child at all with your parents. You still miss them the same way, no matter how big you get. But she didn't discuss this with her children. Instead, she told her children stories about their pirate captain grandmother. Stories of what it was like to have her home, and stories of what her mother did when she was off sailing. Her children grew up knowing the legend of their grandmother, the pirate captain. And the pirate captain's daughter taught them how to wait. Every afternoon, they would go over to the rocks on the side of the island and look out at the bay and see if the pirate captain's ship had come in. One day, they went, and just as soon as they got to the rocks, the children started yelling and screeching because their grandmother's ship was docked. But the pirate captain's daughter looked closely, and her mother's ship was not flying her mother's flag. She knew what this meant. She knew that her mother was gone, but still here, because there was her ship. What could she do? There were no boats on this small island, and she could not swim. So she sat down, and she thought of all that she had had with her mother, all the adventures that they had had on the small island, all the things her mother taught her, and she chose to be grateful for it all. And she waited, because pirate captains' daughters are very good at waiting. That's all. Let's sing our song of dedication.
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind and fellowship. Thus do we covenant with each other. Thus do we promise to each other.
Our mission at Emerson is to seek truths, celebrate differences, act on our Unitarian Universalist principles, inspire the best in each of us, and serve the world. Our mission is made possible through the generous time, talent, and financial contributions of members, friends, and guests. One way we live our mission is by partnering with other organizations committed to creating justice, peace, and compassion in the world. Each month, we choose an organization and encourage our members and friends to contribute both financially and through action to their work. This month's partner organization is El Refugio. El Refugio provides social services to detained immigrants and hospitality support for their visiting families, including meals, temporary lodging, and detention visitations. At this time, we ask you to consider making a financial contribution to Emerson and to El. Our collection today will be shared equally between both organizations. Any amount is appreciated, and we thank you for putting your values into action. Ways of giving will be listed on the screen. A link will be in the online chat, and you can also go to our website at emersonuu.org. You will be directed to our online giving platform where you can contribute to share the basket, and you will also have the option to make an additional contribution to El Refugio if you choose. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Well, hey, y'all. Good morning. My name is Lane LaFay, and I serve as a member of the Emerson Pastoral Care Team. Pastoral Care Team members are available with listening ears and caring hearts to support you during challenging times. You can contact us at our email address, pastoralcare@emersonuu.org. At this time in our service, we pause to share personal joys, sorrows, and concerns of our Emerson community. Each Sunday, we light our vigil bowl. Its light represents the light of hope for the peaceful resolution of all conflicts on our planet, and it honors all dedicated people who serve us, including those on the front line of the COVID-19 virus battle. We also light a special candle of acknowledgement for the Cherokee and Muskogee nations of people who lived on this land before us. May this candle remind us of our interconnection, and may our actions help heal all nations of people. Reverend Deborah will light our candles as we hold space for sharing joys. And although I don't have any to read, if you have any personal joys you would like to share with our Emerson community, please feel free to type them into our chat now as Reverend Deborah lights a candle for them. And let us hold open that space. Now, in sharing sorrows and concerns, we light a special candle this morning for all of those that have suffered loss in the past 2 weeks due to the senseless mass murders in Atlanta, in Colorado, in Virginia. And we light a candle for those who have sustained injury, loss of home, loss of life, from the tornadoes that swept across the South and high winds through other parts of the country this week. In our Emerson congregation, Judy Griffin will be having surgery at the end of the month. She is uplifted by caring input when she deals with life challenges like this. If you have any additional concerns or sorrows you would like to share, please feel free to type them in our chat now as Reverend Deborah lights a candle for them as well. And let us hold that space. But we know there may be joys and sorrows and concerns that are just too tender to share. So if you're able, feel free to just type the name of someone you're holding in your heart today. Let us send our heartfelt caring intentions to all people everywhere by offering the Buddhist prayer of loving kindness. These words are projected here and printed in the order of service. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May they be free from harm and suffering. May they be well in body, heart, and mind. And may they be at peace. Blessed be.
I invite us now to continue to go deeper into our worship time with a time of centering. So if you're comfortable closing your eyes, perhaps do that, or have soft eyes. If you would like to first, if you haven't already, take a moment to scroll through the chat where folks have shared their joys and sorrows, taking a moment to read those as we center ourselves. We center ourselves as individuals, and we center ourselves as a community. So as you're ready, I invite you to take a deep breath. And then go ahead and take an even deeper breath. And then allow your body even more oxygen by taking a really, really slow, full inhale. Filling your body up with as much air as you can. And then pausing and very slowly allow that breath to exhale. And then allow yourself to sit in the quiet of the moment. Here in Woodstock, as we were lighting the candles of sorrow, the earth broke open and rain started to come down. So notice the sounds that surround you where you are right now. Take this moment to notice the sensations in your body as you breathe. And note where you are in the vastness of this universe. Your body, your small body, surrounded by a sea of existence, of other people, of other things, and of space. And just notice what is with you here now in your heart. What is it that you've carried into this place today, inside your own heart? Perhaps it is in the recesses of your heart. Perhaps something you were not aware of in the chatter of your life, but now in the quiet, you hear its faint call. Take a deep breath, knowing you do not need to push them away. Now is just going to be a time to acknowledge what you find. It's okay to give them space and to still know that a new day is coming, to hold both those realities. For now, give yourself another deep breath. And if you feel ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes as we take in this beautiful music. Thank you, choir. So let's talk about grief and daffodils. My husband Jim and I ventured to Gibbs Gardens several weeks ago. Mark Horn had extolled the virtues of the spring daffodils there since our very first trip here 2 years ago. A little side note, it was exactly 2 years ago today that I got word that Emerson had invited me to be its ministerial candidate. So a wonderful day indeed. Well, Mark had told us of this sea of daffodils that emerged for only a brief period of time each spring, as daffodils are wont to do. So this year we made our way north, and oh, indeed it was a sight to see. Like a quilt dotted with little yellow pom-poms, the daffodils dotted the fields and the woods of the garden. And as I stood gazing at their determined beauty, it struck me how fleeting the opportunity really was. These happy little flowers painted across the landscape like a Bob Ross original would soon be swept aside as if they had never been there. And I could feel a sadness in that and an awe. Now, of course, I knew that that's the deal, right? That's the deal going in with daffodils. They foretell the arrival of spring, and then they bring the message that life is impermanent. Buddhist monks who spend hours crafting gorgeous sand mandalas offer a similar message. Have you seen these? These monks take hours and hours crafting these gorgeous art with colored sand, very meticulously laid down in these beautiful designs. And then almost as soon as they're done, they just sweep it away. Life is impermanent, they teach without words. Now, as a spiritual practitioner myself, these messages have been part of my life for a long time, and I do my best to embrace them and work with them and accept them. But somehow this year has seemed different, hasn't it? This year, it felt like it wasn't just the fleeting daffodils or sand art, it was everything. This was a year where many of our metaphorical daffodil gardens did not even get to bloom. It's like this storm named COVID came in, ripping through our gardens of our lives and extracted so many of our prized bulbs that we had so meticulously planted. I took some time this week and I went back over my 2020 calendar, and I was amazed at the number of things that had gotten crossed out or canceled or adjusted. How about you? Have you lost track of the number of changes this year? I think way back, back to last year, I was so busy at the time trying to adjust to the new realities, to learn how to do worship online and meetings online and just life online, wearing a mask, how to go grocery shopping, all those things. I barely noticed the feelings inside about all that was lost. Indeed, I barely noticed that there was grief at all. To be sure, I was aware of this growing stack of displaced bulbs laying by my side. It was like I was carrying them in some basket with me. But I was too busy to know what to do with them. Do you know what I mean? Violence is what we do when we don't know how to be with our suffering. And grief, it is said, is love with nowhere to go. Of course, my calendar cancellations were in and of themselves small little loves to lose. Indeed, there have been many big loves that have been lost this year as well. This year, over 7 million people died of COVID-19 worldwide, almost 550,000 of them right here in the United States. So much grief, so much love with nowhere to go. And that's only the number of people who have died from COVID. How we have been allowed to grieve so many others has also been radically altered this past year. In addition to the deaths itself, many people have had to grieve not seeing their loved one at the end of their life, or not being able to gather in person to honor and celebrate their beloved's life. Grief has come to us all this year in small ways and in some very large ways as well. And I think it has also come in a universal way. Maybe that's what makes this year so different too. There's a universal grief. I'm pretty sure no one listening here today knew George Floyd personally. And yet his death felt so personal, so universal. I remember exactly where I was when I first watched that sickening video of his murder. Do you remember where you were? And there's so many others held in our collective grief. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and most recently, our very own neighbors who lost their lives just miles from where we worship. This is a year of collective loss and collective grief. Of course, in some existential reality, we all know that our lives are like daffodils and Buddhist sand art, right? That people and things are here for only a brief season and then they pass. But knowing it in our heads and feeling it in our bodies are two different things. And I wonder today if you've felt it yet. Have you allowed yourself to take a breath and just feel the sadness of this past year? I know I hadn't until recently. It took a conscious effort on my part to say, I'm going to sit here and just allow what's been held in my body to grieve. There's this poignant piece from Lemony Snicket. It's about the death of a loved one, but I think it rings true for so many kinds of loss. He describes the experience as this. He says, it is like walking up the stairs to your bedroom in the dark and thinking there is one more stair than there is. And your foot falls down through the air, and there is a sickly moment of dark surprise as you try to readjust the way you thought of things. This is grief. It is the shock that something is not there when everything in us was fully prepared for it to be there. Have you had those sickly moments this year? Sometimes we think of grief as those moments of the big cry, you know, the ones that rock you at your core so hard that you feel as if your very insides were going to erupt, having been displaced by the sheer magnitude of pain inside your being. That is grief. To be sure, that is grief. And so too are the quieter moments of grief. That blank stare moment. The moment when the brain tries to convince the feeling centers of the body that you will be okay. When something deeper inside you knows that's a lie. This isn't okay. Grief is not the acquiescence to the impermanence theory. Grief, on the contrary, is the word no. Repeated and escalating fervor from someplace inside you that you had only previously slightly been aware existed. It's like, no, 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 no. Take a moment. See what you have lost this year. Maybe close your eyes and feel no. That's grief. Grief is that existential standoff with you and God, the God that you may or may not believe in. Looking at him or her or it straight in the eye and saying something that I don't usually say in worship services. Sixth letter of the alphabet, you, God, who I doubt exists. Sixth letter of the alphabet, you. That's grief. Grief is fear that what is lost is only the beginning of the loss. That we are stuck in a perpetual downhill spiral that, like a whirlpool in the middle of the vast ocean, will suck anything left of us into it. Grief is fatigue, just plain tiredness. Grief is confusion, disorientation. It's easy to feel alone in our grief, as it is so personal. No one's grief is like another's. And yet this year has held so much collective grief, it's hard to know where one person's grief stops and another's begins. There's a Buddhist story about grief. It goes like this. There was a grieving mother who went to the Buddha and begged him to bring her child back to life. And he refused at first, but then she continued to plead. So finally, Buddha said, okay, I'll work the magic if you provide a mustard seed. But the mustard seed must be taken from a home where no grief or death has been visited there. So the woman heads off into the village, determined to find such a mustard seed, and she knocks on door after door after door. But of course, she cannot find the life-restoring seed because no household had been spared of death or grief. And over time, in hearing the stories of loss from the homes she visited, she herself began to help those families and comfort them and cook for them and sit with them and listen to the stories of their loved ones, of their grief, of their loss. And finally, one day, she returned to the Buddha, and together they buried her child. Grief has come to visit us all, and it is good to allow time to grieve together, because loss reminds us of our deepest need to be connected. I think in our grief, we can actually find that place that knows that we were never really disconnected. Our memories of our loved ones who have passed connect us to them. In our memories of them, they live. And in our willingness to feel their presence, we get a new, yet different relationship with them. As well, our connections to the things, events, and spaces we have lost. It allows us for them to stay alive in us, in our willingness to feel them, to feel the meaning of them in our lives. There's this wonderful commentary, Sandra Malik shared this with me. It's a commentary that was aired on NPR, offered by Aaron Freeman. I want to share it with you. He starts this commentary by saying this. He says, you want a physicist to speak at your funeral. And then he goes on and he says, you want a physicist to talk to your grieving family about the conservation of energy so they will understand that your energy has not died. You want the physicist to remind your sobbing mother about the first law of thermodynamics, that no energy gets created in the universe and none is destroyed. You want your mother to know that all of your energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of every particle that was her beloved child remains here in this world. And he goes on telling us about how all the photons that bounced from one person were gathered in the particle receptors of another's, and that those photons created constellations of electromagnetically charged neurons whose energy will go on forever. And the commentary ends with this. He says, according to the law of the conservation of energy, not a bit of you is gone. You're just less orderly. And I guess that is true about all the things of this past year too. The energy that caused me to want to hug you has not disappeared. It's just temporarily less orderly, less able to be expressed. But that desire is there. The energy that organized the events we have all missed has not left the planet. It's just temporarily less orderly. That's all. But in connecting with it, we can feel some re-emergence at foot. And the energy that was the ones that you love is still here too. Your love for them is still a vital force of creation. Each of those things, spaces, places, people that we let go of, not because we wanted to, for Goddess of all knows we did not want to let go. But all those things that we did let go of, they still exist. Perhaps waiting to become orderly once again. Like the daffodils that descend back into the earth, waiting for the next morning of their lives, we too can find comfort and rejuvenation by allowing the darkness of grief to hold us and prepare for our rebirth. So let us take time to grieve and then know that a new morning will rise. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It means peace, peace, peace. I'm going to invite us into a ritual right now, ritual of grieving and letting go and re-emergence. So if you can, and you feel drawn to, go ahead and grab a piece of paper and a writing instrument. You can also do this ritual in your mind's eye only. We're going to take a moment together. We're going to prepare the soil for rejuvenation of those things that we grieve. Let us take a breath as Lane prepares the earth to hold our grief. Take some time and go ahead and make that list. Make a list and name the things that you have had to let go of this year. Things that were ripped away from you. Let it be the big things as well as the small. Write them down. You can even think of them and imagine yourself writing them on little pieces of paper. What are those things that are in your heart? You can imagine them, perhaps if you have your actual piece of paper. Take those pieces of paper and cut them up in little pieces. Imagine that you have handed them to Lane and she is offering them into the earth. And if tears come, allow them to come. Let those tears water those things that you have let go. Those tears provide nourishment. And take a breath, surrendering the energy of those things back to the earth. And then prepare for something new. Something new to come from the energy of all of that. No energy ever destroyed. Imagine yourself being part of this creation, of this holding, of this new life. Allow your grief to be held. To be comforted together. Let us be reborn together. And as you are ready, please join in our closing hymn, Holding Our Sorrow.
I am one, I am tired, in my quiet sorrow. Hopelessness will not let me be. Help me. I won't speak of this ache inside my eludes me. In the silence of my heart, I'm I keep on day by day, trusting light will guide me. Will you be with me through this time, holding me? You're my hope when I feel holding on me, leaving deep inside. How I pray I'm strong, blessed be.
Thank you all for being a community together, to hold this space with and for each other. It's precious. It's precious. I'm going to close with these words from Mary Oliver. Mary tells us this, that to live in this world, we must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes, to let it go. Let it go. So may all that you have had to let go of this year remain in you, in your heart, as energies ready to bloom again when the season is right. Blessed be, and amen. I think we'll have our chalice extinguishing now.
As we end our service and extinguish the light from the chalice, please plan to stay with us for our second hour activities I mentioned during the welcome. There is so much more to come. And please refer to the order of service and join me in the congregational response. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again.
Please go now in peace and take peace wherever you go.